are gathered, there you are in our midst. Lord, we welcome you into our midst and ask you to anoint us and anoint our minds and put our minds at ease so that we can receive the word of God, feed our souls, that we may be what you called us to be in these last and evil days. We ask it in your Son's name, Jesus. Amen.
Thank you, Jesus. Amen. Thank you, brother. Okay. We're in a very interesting spot. Because part of the challenge of now going through the era that we're in is how fast things are moving and where these things are found. Like what we've got is this: we've got in the nation of Israel, kings are changing fast.
Every 2 years.
Yeah, like every 2 years, fast. Judah, it's longer. Right about where we're at, Jehoshaphat's going to show up. So is Yehoshaphat. Remember that guy? Yehoshaphat. So is Ahab. King Ahab is going to show up with good old Queen Jezebel. We are almost immediately, we're then introduced to Elijah. And all of a sudden these prophets start showing up. And we're going to start to hear Micaiah, Obadiah, Zechariah. It's very interesting. And so I'm going to do my best to help us all understand just where we're at, again, what's happening. Because as I said before, it's like in a movie, there's a this cameo of what's happening up here, and then there's a shift down here. Now it's Judah. Now back up to Israel. But then there's the little side stories that happen. The side stories are found in another book. So like I mentioned last week, Jehoshaphat really gets no page time in the Kings, which is interesting. Gets a lot of it in the Chronicles. So we need to shift over there, and it's incredible how significant that is. And so we're just going to be bouncing around, okay? And if you don't make your living doing this, if you don't always look at the scriptures, you get jumbled, and you don't know. You'll read over in the Chronicles. I saw something like that. This was something like mentioned, but why is it here? And what happened there? And so, if I was to, have a timeline that was actually, big enough, a huge whiteboard where I can give you all the details, it might help you just understand where things are. I mean, here's the story, the biblical story, but here's where it's found. And then again, sometimes things kind of bounce back and forth. Like I said, we see these kings moving quick in Israel, and then there's something with Judah, but then Judah has to, so there's some catching up to speed. Because it's as if, okay, well, we talked about maybe Israel maybe a little longer to kind of cover this. I don't know if that makes sense. So we just there's a little chronological hopscotch we also have to play. I know that we did that last week too. But, so confusing you more, here we go. 1 Kings 15 is where we were last week. I mentioned that we were looking at 6 kings listed from chapter 15, verse 25, to chapter 16, verse 34. It starts with Nadab, and it ends with Ahab. And all of them are evil. And they're all the kings of Israel. And we're watching the decay of Israel. Rapid fire. Bad king after bad king. Chapter 15, verse 25, because we looked at this, right? We looked at Nadab, didn't we not? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, and I don't want to spend a lot of time here. I want to get over to the Chronicles tonight to look at Jehoshaphat. Okay. But simply look at this. I'm going to give you a little little synopsis. Nadav. He maintains his father's wicked idolatry. Who's his dad? Jeroboam. Now, remember, Jeroboam, not to be confused with Rehoboam. Jeroboam's the king of Israel. He's the northern kingdom, right? Solomon's son, Rehoboam, king of the southern kingdom. Now, so Nadab, he is now reigning over Israel. And if you just look at verse 25, 26, what do you read about him? He's terrible, right? If you remember, he is slain by Baasha during one of the battles with the Philistines. Chapter 15, verse 33 to 16:7, just skim. What we see is Baasha reigns for 24 years. He fulfills prophecy from chapter 14 that all of Jeroboam's seed would be destroyed. Remember that? Right? He does that job. Okay. Jehu the prophet comes with a message for Baasha, predicting the destruction of Baasha's household. Remember that? His son Elah, verse 8 of chapter 16, he reigns for less than 2 years. He's killed he's assassinated by Zimri. Remember this guy? That's one of his captains. And he does that while Elah is drunk. Verse 11 of chapter 16, Zimri, he leads the nation for a whopping week. And during the time he wipes out the family of Baasha, he fulfills the prophecy from the Jehu spoke from verses 1 through 4. Or it happens there, 1 to 4. His army revolts. They appoint Omri, this new king, in his place. Verse 16. He in turn, he marches against Zimri. He sets fire to the palace and he commits suicide by perishing in the blaze. How's that?
Chaos.
No, it's just absolutely not. And that's look at 16:18. When Zimri saw the city was taken, he went into the citadel of the king's house. He burned down the king's house over himself with fire and he died. He committed suicide. He goes, there's no way out of this. And for some reason, he goes, I'm going to go Harry Carey here. I'm not going to let them kill me. I'm just going to kill myself. And he goes down in flames. Oh, boy. Okay. Omri, verse 21. Somebody read 21, 2, and 3. And I'm going fast through these kings. You know why? They don't have a lot of page time. All we're told, here's this person, reign short, evil, another one short, evil, another one short, evil. You don't need to memorize them or we're just clocking through. That's what the author of the Kings is. They're just terrible. We're going to get through their reigns quick. We're going to spend more time on more important cases. Okay, so somebody read 21, 2, and 3.
Then the people of Israel were divided into 2 parts. Half of the people followed Tibni, the son of Ginath, to make him king, and half followed Omri.
Put on the brakes. What happened? What just happened?
Split of the kingdom.
Okay, wait, isn't the kingdom split?
Yep.
Yeah.
Did you know that now the northern kingdom is now splitting? What? We thought just the north and the south, Israel and Judah. And now Israel, it's got conflict. And now there's the tribes there, the 10 tribes go, we want this guy, no, we want this guy. And now it's starting to split. It's not going to last long.
But the people who followed Omri prevailed over the people who followed Tibni, the son of Ginath. So Tibni died and Omri reigned. In the 31st year of Asa, king of Judah, Omri became king over Israel and reigned 12 years. 6 years he reigned in Tirzah. All
right, so now we've got Omri. All right, it's just the wildest thing. Brief revolt, almost split the nation, permanently in 2 parts. Omri's only claim to fame is he establishes Samaria as one of the capitals of the northern kingdom. That third, remember we talked about that? Okay, this is when we were first talking about the north and the south kingdom. There's going to be 3,
capitals.
Capitals, and this now he now introduces Samaria, and upon his death, his son is going to come to the throne. Who's his son? Let's find out. Okay, somebody read 24 to 28, please.
He bought the hill of Samaria from Shemer for 2 talents of silver and built the city on the hill, calling it Samaria after Shemer, the name of the former owner of the hill. But Omri did evil in the eyes of the Lord and sinned more than all those before him. He walked in all the ways of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, and in his sin, which he had caused Israel to commit. So they provoked the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger by their worthless idols. And as for the other events of Omri's reign, what he did and the things that he achieved, are they not written in the book of the annals of the king of Israel? Omri rested with his fathers and was buried in Samaria, and Ahab his son succeeded him as the king.
Huh. Did you see how fast that nation declined? Do we all know Ahab and Jezebel? Household names. You look how fast, Ahab's not down the road. No, he's pretty quick. You go, are you kidding me? Because when we understand now, as we enter this section, Ahab's going to get some page time, and Jezebel, because of what they introduced, Baal worship. Mm-hmm. And then that's when Elisha shows up. I mean, now there's this drama. So simply the storyteller takes us through the less significant kings are just terrible, short reigns, nothing significant except just being terrible like the one before him. Then it gets really bad.
It's not bad enough yet.
It ain't bad enough yet, then it gets really bad. And then here's Ahab and Jezebel, and I'm very excited about what's going to happen here. And let me say, just for now, well, we have to do this. Flip over to 2 Chronicles chapter 15. And now comes the magnifying glass on what's about to happen here. And then we're going to have to come back, because 18 is Elijah, the priest of Baal on Mount Carmel, that whole thing. Okay, so something really great's going to happen in 1 Kings, but first we got to go to 2 Chronicles, and we got to back up a little bit now. Look at now what happens in chapter 15. Somebody please read verse 1 to 7.
The Spirit of God came upon Azariah, son of Obed. He went out to meet Asa and said to him, "Listen to me, Asa and all Judah and Benjamin. The Lord is with you when you are with him. If you seek him, he will be found by you. But if you forsake him, he will forsake you. For a long time Israel was without the true God, without a priest to teach, and without the law. But in their distress they turned to the Lord, the God of Israel, and sought him, and he was found by them. In those days it was not safe to travel about, for all the inhabitants of the land were in great turmoil. One nation was being crushed by another, and one city by another, because God was troubling them with every kind of distress. But as for you, be strong and do not give up, for your work will be rewarded."
Okay. I want you to look again. Look at verse 3. For a long time, well, I can back you up. There's a quote of Jeremiah 29:13. If you seek him, he'll be found by you, but if you abandon him, he'll abandon you. Remember that? That prayer, that conversation that Solomon had with God? Okay? So, Azariah speaks this, like prophecy, reminds him this truth of how you have a relationship with God. Says you're going to be king. This is important, buddy. And then we get, like in the parentheses, it's parenthetical right here. You get this verse 3. For a long time, Israel was what? Without the true God. Well, right. Remember what we've been reading about, the 2 calf, golden calf, false religion and all that. And without what? A teaching priest. Okay, ain't nobody teaching the Bible anymore. Nobody's really keeping people's nose in the book. I mean, there's no spiritual compass. Okay? They're not hearing the law. They don't know what's right or wrong. They're making it up by them as they go. But in their distress, what? They turn to the Lord, the God of Israel, and sought him, and he was found. Oh, well, that's what Azariah said, right? Yep. Right? Okay, if you seek him, he'll let you find him. Okay, so the nation does it. In those times, what else? Verse 5. It wasn't safe for what?
To travel.
It wasn't safe. It wasn't safe to walk down the street. Okay. For great disturbances afflicted all the inhabitants of the land. They were broken in pieces, nation against nation, city against city. For God troubled them with every sort of distress. Who did it? Now, I want to ask you a question. Right now, we're told we can't go out in the street. A lot of America, luckily South Dakota is different. But you can't go outside, you can't this, you can't that. Oh, there's problems. We got threats from Russia, China. We got all this, this may be happening, Iran, blah, 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 blah. We're in a very interesting time. The whole world is like being troubled. The whole world's in distress. Do you think God maybe has a part of it?
Absolutely. I don't think so.
I mean, I like to, we often go, the devil does these things and just the globalists. Yeah, they're involved. But, we've got to remember, God really pulls the strings. And if God wants to trouble us with every sort of distress, he will do that. If he wants to get your attention, he will do that.
He wants to get your attention.
And it's just interesting that back then, it's as if they literally said, it's not safe to be outside. That's really what you just heard. Well, isn't that funny? Isn't that funny?
What they're saying now.
That's what we're hearing now. It's really not safe to be outside. I mean, and stay home, stay. It's just bizarre. So it's not identical situations, but it's close enough to where I go, is God doing some troubling? And here's why it's happening and why it's going to happen more. Back in that passage, in what we're going to see tonight and the weeks ahead, and what I believe is going to happen in the nation, if not the world. The further you remove God, the more chaos fills that vacuum.
Yes.
Chaos fills the vacuum. God is the God of order. There's right and wrong. There's a law. Here's how we get along. Here's how we're civil. Here's how we treat one another. Here's how you're fair. We're not ripping each other off. We're not doing what a lot of banks and people want to get rich and the global forum economic reset folks are doing that I think is there's trying to be a hijacking of wealth, all that stuff. If God's law is front and center, there's no teaching priest back then. The church is silent, let's say. There's no spiritual authority keeping the nation on the Bible. We live in America right now where the Bible's a joke. It's not considered. It's a fable. Noah's Ark. That's just a thing. That's like Snow White. I mean, it's just as valid of a story. So we're losing everything as a result, right? Well, did I say my antics?
Sorry, but
It's okay. So, chaos, nut stuff. Gender's fluid. There's 54 genders. I want to remind you, on the California UC system applications, you choose from 54 genders plus this extra box you check, which is something that's not listed.
what?
That's our colleges. That's our universities. I kid you not. There's male, female, there's then all the other things. How have we lost our mind?
Yes.
We've completely lost our mind.
Yes.
And it's just getting worse and worse. Worse and worse. It's that simple and as difficult as that. Because when you remove God, you remove his value system. With God, it's not just a name. It's a value system. Do you understand? So when we've removed God, we didn't just remove the name of God. We've removed the value system.
Yes.
That we've associated with God. And right? Okay.
But they don't want his value system right now.
No, not at all. They want their own.
They
What
want
values are there?
theirs.
They want
Right.
Rome.
I mean, oh my gosh. Okay. We can go there, right?
How does
But-
a group of people like we are that have a teacher teaching the Bible and we're believing it and doing the best that we can to be good people and all of that. How do we figure in on all of this once the S hits the fan?
Go nuke.
We're gonna have to
We-
do it.
But I mean,
No, we.
are you included in everything and you're just a block of casualties that just happen to be taken right along with?
You can. I mean, here's the problem. King David said to God, when God said, I got some judgment coming, and he says, God, how will the righteous stand? If you judge the wicked in the land, the righteous are going down with them because we live next door to each other. If you bring in a foreign army to invade us, to teach us a lesson, the good people that didn't deserve that, they're gonna be carried away with that. And the thing is, again, Christian, there is casualties of war. Christians have always been caught up with the majority in what is happening, and I wish it wasn't the case. Sometimes there's some protection. We hear stories of it. There's books written about it, wonderful stories where God has protected certain individuals, certain places, certain church families, whatever, in the midst of stuff. He'll do the Noah's Ark and protect you, keep you above the flood of the difficulty. But generally speaking, no. Generally speaking, we were told time and time again, it's throughout the scripture, Jesus tells us, when it gets tough, it's going to get tough for you. Prepare yourself. Prepare to suffer. Prepare to be persecuted. Be prepared to be hated on account of my name. You belong to me.
Pick up the cross.
And if you make that known, they're going to hate you. It's just, there's this natural thing. Again.
But ultimately, it's minor because you're saved.
Thank you. And that's the thing. Right on, Gary. And we got to keep in mind that, again, this isn't the life we're holding on to.
No.
This isn't the life Jesus saved us to live forever. It's going to be when all things have been made new, and that is what we're living for. And our job is to take people with us and not to be caught up in the distraction and the fear of what's happening to the world. We had a pastor's prayer meeting. Every Wednesday morning. We had a wonderful one this morning. It's amazing. But on my heart to pray was this. I just had this thing. It wouldn't let me go, and it was that we would pray against fear. I thought of Paul. Paul knew the power of fear, and he found that by persecuting. So he'd persecute Christians, and fear can silence a lot of Christians. It's just what can happen. That's what's been happening in the United States. Okay, and Christians, they kind of get scared. Then they go quiet because they don't want to be dogpiled by the social media or hated or etc. And so we need to not have fear of our lives. And you can't scare a dead man. I mean, the late Bishop Harry Jackson, one of the Watchman folks and a staff member from FRC, tremendous guy. Bishop Harry Jackson. He had cancer, and at one point he died on the table, and he was gone for about 5 minutes, and they resuscitated him, whatever, brought him back to life. And at one of our meetings in D.C., he talked to us, and he said, "You can't scare a dead man." And because he's incredibly bold, it's amazing what he would say. And he doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to him, who he's going to offend. Not that he tries to be offensive, but he speaks for God, stands for God's truth, and he calls it as it is. It's tremendous. Bishop Harry Jackson. And his big thing, he said you can't scare a dead man, because if you want to know where I have my confidence, I've already died. He said, I know what it's like to die. He said, I'm not afraid to die again. Think about that. He died. He goes, I know what it's like to die, and it wasn't that scary. He goes, and then he talked just briefly about what he experienced when he died. He goes, I'm not scared of death at all. So I'm going to say whatever. I'm living for God, speaking for God. Love Bishop Harry Jackson. So,
it talks about in the Bible that we should be the salt of the earth.
Yeah,
And if we lose our savor, if we lose that saltiness, we're not worth nothing but to be walked upon. So we have to be salty. That means not to be mean or rude, but we have to have that holy boldness. We have to be bold in this, and not afraid. When you remove fear, you have disarmed I mean, you can disarm so many. One can chase 1,000 and two can chase 10,000.
Right.
And there's power in that.
Right.
And where there's unity, there's strength.
Right.
As we come together, as you're teaching us, as we come together and become on one accord from Acts, you'll see.
Yeah, amen. Right
It's
on,
coming.
Michael.
It's coming.
Right on, right with you, we're with you. So, again, when you get rid of God, it's not just God, you're getting rid of a value system. And when you lose that value system, nature that hates a vacuum will fill it. It will fill the absenteeism of God because he's been dismissed from our schools. Well, look what's taught.
Exactly.
I mean, think about it. There's nothing Christian at all being taught in our public school.
No.
From our politics. Where is God in D.C. right now, except for a few little pockets and people that sometimes get some page time? And again, there are some incredibly strong Christian congressmen and women, but they get no attention from the media. No camera, no secular media station wants to give them any page time. They've been, just sent to the edges, right? They have been. That empty space. Now listen. If you take God out, what's going to fill it? Moderately okay stuff? Still good stuff? If the devil sees an opening, he's going to fill it. In a very stealthy way. Evil is the only thing that's going to fill the absenteeism of God. I mean, we'd be foolish to think, well, something just a little less than God. A value system, maybe not totally where, Judeo-Christian values are, but something a little less. No. You get rid of God, it's a race to the bottom. Look at the value system now.
Footholds.
Right? Phenomenal. So evil is what comes in. This is why what we've already read, when the nation leaves God and they go to this cult thing, evil. I mean, full-blown evil. And all we're told is this king did more evil than the guy before him and led the nation in it as well. That's all you get. The detail of what that was like and when it even got bigger and worse, because we already know it was idolatry. We're already told it led the nation in idolatry. Well, we know about that. Solomon started to do that when he married the wives and built the temples, the idol temples for his wife. We already know it was starting to go that direction. Molech, Asherah, Chemosh, these pagan gods of the Moabites, the Amorites, they're all coming in. They're being worshipped. Okay, we already know what they demand. Human sacrifice, child sacrifice, sexual deviance in their worship services. Oh my gosh! We talked about it last week. Our television sets Christians worship at the altar of Molech. When we entertain ourselves with sex scenes that, when I was a kid, when y'all were kids, you never saw.
No.
Because all TV was G-rated back then. I mean, now, what was in the theaters back when I was a kid, R-rated, whatever, is now prime time. So our whole nation, our nation is worshiping these same gods, but not by those names.
What I noticed is that it said that they were divided. That Israel had divided itself in divisiveness. And if you know anything about the devil, they are unified and they are one force. And, and that's the problem I see personally with the churches, the division, the divisiveness. We have to stop being so secular. So, well, I'm a prosperity, I'm a this or I'm a that, or I'm a this. I think we should all be unified. And therein comes, that strength, and we just have to put away our differences and move forward.
Yeah, and I tell you again, I love what's happening in Rapid, in the area, the churches that are coming together,
Yes.
The pastors that are there to pray Wednesday mornings, the number of churches that have said they're going to come together for the Will Graham thing. I just hope that has some real staying power of that unity, and that unity builds, and that we would see such a rush of God in this area that the churches would just be packed packed with new believers that we don't worry about, well, am I getting, our church, are we getting an equal share of new believers? Oh my gosh, we can't go flesh at all. I mean, we've got to just say, wherever the Lord puts them, we're going to trust the Lord is putting new believers wherever they need to be. It doesn't matter if we get 5 and another church gets 500. What matters is that we're all working together to get any one life changed for eternity.
That's amazing.
If it was your life,
Bingo.
okay, I mean, it's worth whoever we can grab, whoever we can get, and we don't fight over, the numbers. We just all together fight. As long as they're getting saved and getting in a church, we're good, right? I'm good with that. Are you good? I'm so good with that. If we don't get any, I'm good with that. As long as they're in a church somewhere where they need to be and where they connect best, right?
Because if they don't get to a church pastor, they can't grow.
They can't, that's right.
Yeah,
They
and
have to be, they
yeah.
have to have a teacher.
yeah, they won't grow, and before you know it, they're
They'll be
lost.
Yeah, and so we don't care where they go.
Yeah, we don't care.
If
Yeah,
they come here,
truly.
that's wonderful. If they don't,
Yeah,
that's
truly.
okay.
Yeah, truly. So, there's my rant. So that's from, the beginning of 15. I'm just simply saying, it's a wonderful thing what you hear, it's been the nation without God. No teaching priest. We're talking about what that was. No law of God being taught. Learn about that. It's now dangerous to go outside. Everything's just, there's no security. It's just people you can't trust. They may turn on you. They may hurt you. I mean, a lot of folks in a lot of big cities nowadays, they're kind of scared.
Yeah.
Right? It's scary. And so either way, so I will say that when it continues, look at verse 8. I want to try to, we're not making any. Verse 8, Asa, he hears these words of the prophecy, right, of Azariah, the son of Obed. He takes courage. He puts away all the abominable idols from the land of Judah and Benjamin, from the towns, He's just going, we're going clean. 9, he gathered all of Judah and Benjamin and those from Ephraim, Manasseh, Simeon. It's very interesting. Those from other, the northern remnants who are still down there, even though the lion's share of their people are up north. This is great. So he's getting whoever he can. Those that even deserted up there and came down to Judah, he takes them in. Verse 17, they sacrificed to the Lord on that day. They just had tremendous shift to worship God. They enter into a covenant, look at this, to seek the Lord, the God of their ancestors, with all their heart, all their soul. Whoever would seek the Lord, the God of Israel, who would not, should be put to death. Wow, whether young or old, man or woman. Now, that's called getting serious. You understand that? Oh, imagine, if you're not a Christian, we're going to kill you. That's pretty much what they got to. I'm serious. So the Jews were saying, if you're not us, one of us, worshiping the God, our God, Yahweh, we're going to put you to death if you live here. Now, imagine having to come up with a law like that. You want to know you know why you do that? Because of what you lived under. It's because under these false gods, we've been already putting people to death. We've been putting kids to death. We've just been total chaos. It has been out of control. So now you go, okay, at the threat of your life, of the people, the population, we're going to make sure at threat of death that you obey. What you think about that?
They still didn't get 100%.
Yeah, probably not. But I'm sure the percentage went up. And I go, imagine if there was such a shift in the United States when we get so sick and tired, hopefully, of what has been happening, what's happening now, and will continue to happen unless there's a shift, in the White House and beyond. Imagine if at one point some new king gets into power, Trump gets back in or something, and they go, we can't give them, whatever, the progressives, the godless, whatever, we can't give them an inch again, because when you give them an inch, man, they try to take everything. And by fraud, coercion, we can't allow that. And so they go death penalty. Woo! Now imagine if America ever got there. Joe,
The exact opposite is happening right now.
say it.
The exact opposite is happening right now.
Explain.
Everything you just said, the other side is doing that.
The other side's doing it. We're going to silence you because you gave us Trump. And we're mad at the churches because the churches clearly were the ones that, put Trump in office. So we're going to crack down on you. We're going to silence you. We're going to, no public, social platform for you. On and on and on. We're even going to, FBI is going to come in and raid your house. It's amazing, right? Mm-hmm.
So let them come.
Right? Yeah.
Let them
Right.
come. We have got to stand
We do.
firm,
Don't we? Got to stand firm.
stand together.
Yeah, we do.
We'll win out in the end.
Right?
In the end,
One way or the other.
that's right.
He's not even in the
That's right.
presidency, and he's being attacked through Giuliani right now.
Oh, right. Yeah, think of what happened to Giuliani. You kidding me? The FBI raises. I mean, oh my goodness. Yeah, I think again we're just seeing the beginning of what can happen unless there's some
Did
major
people
shit.
not see
But-
that coming?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I did. I thought once Trump got out that is exactly what they were going to do. Go after his lawyers,
Right.
then they're going to work their way down.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Staffers,
Oh, it's amazing.
vice president.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. All Trump supporters. If you gave a contribution. So watch. Verse 15. This is amazing. Well, 14. So they took an oath. The nation takes an oath to the Lord with a loud voice and with shouting and with trumpets and horns. Use your imagination here. All Judah, all of it, rejoiced over the oath, for they had sworn with all their heart and had sought him with their whole desire, and he was found by them, and the Lord gave them rest all around. Ah, there it is. It's the reverse of what happened in the first 5 verses. It's no longer, scary to be outside. Now everything's fine. Do you get it? God comes back in. Chaos is gone. Evil is gone. All of a sudden, things are good. It's safe. There's peace with your neighbors. God makes sure there's no foreign invasion. Because we make him our God. That was called revival right there. You just read an amazing story of revival. When a nation experiences revival, a great awakening, that kind of a thing, look what happens. Oh, we need this so bad. Cool. So we keep going. So now, again, we touched on this already, on this king, and about what he did. Remember, he removed his mother? Verse 16, remember that? From being the queen, because she made an abominable image to Asherah. Remember that? The king cut down her image, crushed it, burned it at the Vadi Kidron, this river. The high places weren't taken down of Israel. We said that back in Kings 2. Nevertheless, the heart of Asa was true all his days. Okay, so again, what you saw was a magnifying glass on the very brief thing mentioned about him back in the Kings. So that's why we go to 2 Chronicles. Now, 12:2. Thinking. There's a great verse. Just to point out. I'm sure you've heard it. Chapter 16, verse 9. For the eyes of the Lord range to and fro, throughout the entire earth, to strengthen those whose heart is true to Him. That's a wonderful verse. I remember hearing that back when I was in high school, and I remember somebody teaching on that. And that was fantastic. 16, verse 9. Second Chronicles, chapter 16, verse 9.
Gary would like you to read it.
Yeah. For the eyes of the Lord range throughout the entire earth to strengthen those whose heart is true to Him. Now,
That answers my earlier question.
yeah, in the midst of that, right? So it's as if God, and the Hebrew really says like, he's scanning, like he's straining. He's looking. Whose hearts is bound to mine, and then he strengthens that person. He takes care of that person. It's a wonderful statement. So yeah, Gary does get back to what you were asking. There's so much we can do with this. I want to, let's go to Yehoshaphat, chapter 17. So we're 2 Chronicles 17. In the midst of this, and it'll take us a couple weeks to do, we get a glimpse of Ahab. We have to go back and forth to look at what's happening with Ahab. We're going to get some stuff in 2 Kings about Elijah and what happens during this thing. Because now the 2 Chronicles, you move kind of quick from Jehoshaphat shows up. Where did he find out that Ahab was ascended the throne in Israel? Jehoshaphat's in Judah, and he's going to make an alliance. Long story short, within a couple chapters, Ahab's dead on the battlefield. But there's a whole lot more that happens between that. You've got to go back to the king, because that's where the prophet Elijah comes in. And God does some amazing things there. And part of me wanted to watch about this. I'm looking if I want to go through this time. Give it one time. Let's go 17:1 to 6 something.
And Jehoshaphat his son reigned in his place and strengthened himself against Israel. And he placed troops in all of the fortified cities of Judah and set garrisons in the land of Judah, in the city of Ephraim and Asher his father had taken. Now the Lord was with Jehoshaphat, because he walked in the former ways of his father David. He did not seek Baals, but sought the God of his fathers, and walked in his commandments, and not according to the acts of Israel. Therefore the Lord established the kingdom in his hand, and all Judea, and gave presents to Jehoshaphat, and his riches and honor, and he had riches and honor in abundance, and set in his heart, took delight in the ways of the Lord. Moreover, he removed the high places and wooden things from Judah. How far?
Right there is good. Okay, so here's what happens. Jehoshaphat's the son of who? King Asa. Okay? Watch, earlier in the last chapter, he gets into a conflict. He doesn't rely on the Lord. He makes an alliance with another king, going, "Hey, we can fight this." Hanani, this prophet, or a seer, is another a person that God would use and speak through, who sees the future. And the seer is the one that comes to King Asa and says, the Lord looks throughout, his eyes range throughout the world to strengthen the heart of anybody who's faithful to him. And that pretty much was an indictment to him. He says, you relied on a man and his army and not the Lord, because the Lord is ready to strengthen you. Okay? But what happens is that he gets mad at Hanani, okay? And it looks like God strikes him with a little something, and all of a sudden King Asa's feet it just says they're diseased, and he's not walking well. He's got some problems with his feet, and it says even in that he doesn't turn to the Lord, he doesn't humble himself, and so his ending ain't so hot. Okay, he gets a little arrogant, a little prideful, don't we all? And so his ending's not as good as his start. Nonetheless, he dies. His son Jehoshaphat, he shows up, and you just heard he's going to be good. Look what he's already doing, right? Here's, given what we read at the beginning of 15, there was no law, no teaching priest. 7 to 9. Please, Katie, would you just keep reading 7 to 9?
Sure. Also in the 3rd year of his reign, he set his leaders, Ben-Hail, Obadiah, Zechariah, Nathaniel, and Micaiah to teach the cities of Judea. And then he sent Levites
It's okay. These
Okay,
guys, these are the
I
folks.
can't read all. The Levites, and with them is Jeroboam, and the priests. So they taught in Judea and had the book of the law of the Lord with them, and they went throughout all the cities of Judea and taught the people.
Okay, so what happens? What did you just see? Jehoshaphat, he recruits what? A bunch of Bible educators. He goes, we're biblically illiterate, folks. I need y'all to go do this. These are folks that know the law. They're good teachers. Sends them out, and they do that. They travel throughout the land, and they're teaching the law. Without knowledge, people perish. Right? It's like we got to know what's expected of us. How are we supposed to live on this world? Why are we here? What's our purpose? Okay, they don't know nothing. So now they're going to get a good education. It's fantastic. Verse 10, what happened as a result? What's it say?
The fear of the Lord fell on all the kingdoms of the land.
The fear of the Lord fell on what?
All the kingdoms of the land.
All the kingdoms of the lands around Judah. And they didn't make war against Jehoshaphat.
The neighboring tribes.
Okay, what we've just seen, again, if God is absent, chaos, you're vulnerable, God's hand of protection is removed, you bring God back in, there's protection. Remember the prayer that Solomon had, this conversation he has with God. God pretty much says, buddy, if you follow me, you'll have peace all around. You'll have peace. You'll live at peace with the nations around you. There won't be a threat of war. We right now have more threat, there's a lot of concern in our military, our high brass, our government. We got a weak guy in the White House. I mean, Vladimir and Xi Jinping, they're laughing at him. And they're going, we're right for the picking. There's a reason for America to go, his main concern regarding the military is the new haircuts. Remember this? Have y'all been reading that? Okay.
Female flight suits. Pregnancy flight suits.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's important.
This is his great advancement in the military excellence. As we're going to allow women to wear their hair however they want to wear it now, and that, and we want to make sure we're paying for transgender surgeries and procedures in the military, and for that's their idea of you just go, oh my gosh, and we're being laughed at. And we're ripe for the picking, so it's about 8 o'clock. So that sets the stage of Jehoshaphat's reign, which is good. But again, we got a problem. Jehoshaphat, even though he's at peace, things are good, he does something he shouldn't do. And we're going to get to that next week. And it's going to be, he makes an alliance with a king that's above him in the northern kingdom of Israel, and that's King Ahab. He doesn't need to do that. He needs to distance himself. And it complicates things. It complicates things. But God is still going to protect Jehoshaphat, though he's kind of stupid there. And there's a very famous, very well-known moment where God protects him. And we find out the battle belongs to the Lord. It's amazing, okay? So we'll end there. It's 8 o'clock. Oh, and we get to talk about, does God lie?
God doesn't lie.
Again? Yay!
Does he? We're going to read about when he sends a lying prophet. A spirit. And you go,
A lying
hang on to
spirit.
that.
A spirit of delusion.
Very interesting what God's going to do. Okay.
I gotta go home and read that.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna stop today.
If God hedges on the truth, if he wants to purposely mislead somebody, he gets to do that. And when he does that, it's somebody who's evil, who's been misleading and lying. And he goes, okay, two can play at that game. It's amazing. That's your teaser. So, we'll pray.